Hello and welcome to another episode of Dawncast podcast. I'm Di Lee. And today we've got a wonderful woman. Many of you would have heard of her, Stacey Copas. Stacey is an international speaker, especially on the subject of resilience. So Stacey helps people shift how they perceive and respond to change and adversity, getting them to see opportunities instead of obstacles. Is that right, Stacey? And welcome to our show.
Yes, that is right, and I think also too. I think the word of the current climate is uncertainty. So that's probably the other one to throw in there with the change and adversity. So definitely helping people with their perception of uncertainty at the moment as well. And it's fabulous to be here with you.
Thank you. Look, I know you've been asked this question probably a million times, right? So what motivates you to do what you do?
Yeah, it was interesting because it's, I guess, to take you back in time and how I came to be speaking about resilience is when I was 12 years old, I had an accident in a relative's backyard swimming pool where I broke my neck and drowned, and that unfortunately left me a quadriplegic and needing a wheelchair for the rest of my life. And so that was obviously a huge adjustment for a young person. And so it was then going through all of the processes after that and the deep and the dark, and eventually being able to reverse engineer how I turned my life from the lowest to the lows to where I am today. And at first I sort of thought, oh, look, there's nothing special about me. But with the help of people outside me that saw something in me more than I saw it in myself, they then helped me to see that the lessons that I could share with people about how to overcome adversity were really powerful. But it wasn't until I started speaking and sharing my story and then getting the messages and the emails and things back afterwards where people had heard me speak and they were able to then share how something that I had said had made a big change in their life. So getting those sort of messages is what really motivates me now. And now I sort of feel almost a deep moral responsibility to do what I do, knowing that if I don't show up in my best self and open and generous with my energy and my time, then, perhaps somebody's life may be worse off if I don't do that. So I see it as an absolute privilege now, and, I'm very lucky to get to do what I do.
I posted this morning a quote saying that every situation requires you to take yourself to the next level, right? You have to generate yourself, and as you've just touched upon it. But what did it take for you to generate yourself following that accident? As you said, you were in the darkest of the dark. Can you tell us how dark was it for you?
Oh, look, in the years the first few years particularly that followed that accident, I would have given anything to have either turned back the clock and not taken that dive, or to not be here at all. And really in those years that followed, I hated life and I hated myself. And, at the lowest points, I didn't want to be here at all. And really, I think it was the fear that had I taken a step towards not being here, the fear that if someone had found me before I was gone and I had have ended up worse off than what I was, really probably was the only thing that stopped me in that moment. So, that was as dark as it got. And it's one of those things that we often make judgments and we, again, make assumptions about people that have either taken their own lives or attempted to. But you just can't. We really can't judge, because you just never know where someone's at in order to find themselves at that place. And that scared me, that I found myself in that place. So, and it was finding myself at the lowest of the lows that really almost shocked me into going, you need to get on with things and make a change in your life. And there's so much still opportunity, so much potential, but I needed to really pick myself up and actually make steps towards making those changes.
I mean, like you've just touched upon that, is that, you don't judge. We don't judge people in terms of, when they're at that mindset, what they're thinking, and therefore at that darkest the depth that they're going through. But how do we, there's a bit of a noise there, shuffling of noise. Is that yours or our end? Or your?
It might have been mine, sorry.
Okay, that's all right. But so basically what can, like at that point in time when you're going through that, how can people around you that love you, how can they reach and access you if, to help, as you said, if you can't judge, but then how do we get people out of that state? What can we do? What is your advice to people that are surrounding, your loved ones to get you out of that state?
Yeah, look, I know that I was probably like a lot of people that find themselves in these situations where outwardly you look like everything's going well. So that can be the difficulty, is often those of us that are having tough times are pretty good at hiding it. So I think really the most important thing is just to have good conversation consistently with the people that you're closest with, because I think it's more likely that somebody will be more open and more likely to perhaps reach out if there is that continuous flow of conversation anyway. I think it's much more difficult to put your hand up or even just to say you're having a tough time when you're the one that's actually reaching out. So I feel that if there is that consistent conversation and people just are asking those questions, and we've had Are You Okay Day and things like that, is just remembering that that's just not, you don't just ask those questions one day a year. So it is genuinely asking people how they are. And if something, I think a lot of the time it can be trusting your intuition. It can just be going a little bit deeper and sometimes asking the questions that you feel might be uncomfortable to ask. But I think it's better to feel uncomfortable in a moment than to regret perhaps a question or a conversation that wasn't had, and something, bad may have come from that.
Yeah, look, it's as you mentioned earlier, with the whole thing around COVID, there are a lot of people that are also experiencing a lot of mental health issues. So, and sometimes you feel like, what can I do, to help them, and how do we kind of couch it in a way that is sensitive and not. Yeah, it's so hard, isn't it, Stacey? So can you then tell, like what are some of the steps that somebody like me can support somebody going through a challenging and mentally difficult time, in times like this?
Yeah, I think particularly as you touched on, like the current times that we're in, that being socially connected with the people that are important to us is more important than ever. And I've taken particular exception to the languaging around social distancing.
Yes.
Because it has bugged me since the very first time I heard it. It's okay, we keep a little bit of physical distance, but we need to be socially closer than we've ever been before. So this is the time where it is important to pick up the phone more often than we would have. And I think in these times it's probably to err on the side of over communication rather than under communication. And it's having just the normal conversations, but it is really asking the questions and as I said, going deeper and sometimes pushing that little bit further than you may have, but asking it with an open heart and with curiosity rather than feeling like you're pushing somebody. Yeah. I think is the biggest thing. I think if you're coming from a place of empathy and understanding and compassion and curiosity, I think that can be the best place to come from. And a lot of the time it's actually just trusting that you'll have the right words in the right moment, because I think often we have a tendency to overthink things. And if we're in a conversation with somebody, if we're in our heads and we're thinking too much and not feeling, then often that can block that type of conversation that really needs to be had. So I think that, there's a tendency to overthink rather than just be present in the moment and actually come from a place of heart and feel and then speak from that rather than from what we think we should say.
We tend to live in our heads, don't we? I think a lot of people do. We analyze, we think, we analyze, and I think more and more we kind of have moved that way. But I think in the last, probably due to COVID, people are kind of having time to stop and not just think, but actually feel. And the impact, I think, like you said, the impact of social distancing has really made people feel like, I don't want to social distance to anybody. I need people more than ever, you know. So,
yeah, I think it's been quite interesting, because I think there's a lot of people that probably thought they were more introverted than what they were. And that they've realised how much they do need to be around people. And humans are social creatures. We do need to be around people. So it's using whatever tools we can and making the efforts. You know, for those of us that are able to travel even within our local areas and stuff, is to actually go and make the effort to sit down and have a cup of tea with somebody.
Yeah.
Do those type of things, because that's what's needed more than ever, is just that connection and that genuine coming from a place of heart and compassion.
How much of your upbringing influenced you, do you believe, in your background, to give you that spirit of fighting back, to get you out of that darkness to be where you are today?
I think what was pretty beneficial for me is that prior to having my accident, I was actually a fairly competitive athlete. So it was definitely that sort of element of competitiveness was in me. So I looked at everything in life, even as a young person, was a little bit of a competition. Even at school, an exam for me, most people felt pressure. I actually felt quite excited, because it was an opportunity to compete in some way. So I really feel that there was that element of competition was something that did keep me going at that time. So it was a matter of just, always, once I sort of got through the darkest of the points, beyond that, I've had a really deep sense of always striving to be better, and always striving to push myself in a way, to get out of my comfort zone, to challenge myself, and to often just to see how much you can do and how far you can go. So I think that element of that has been really powerful. And I definitely was brought up with the mindset of having a strong work ethic, and always coming from a place of, I think, really earning what we got in life, rather than having a sense of entitlement in any way. So I think that's definitely been an asset, as far as being able to then rebuild and really make something in my life after that had happened.
Was there a pivotal moment in that darkness where that something happened that made you then change to say, this is it, I've got to turn my life around, and I've got to turn my perspective around, that this obstacles is now the way for me forward?
Yeah, as I touched on earlier, there was that element of scaring myself by how low I'd gotten. But I think that the perspective shift, there was I can't pinpoint the exact moment it happened, but it was probably into my early 20s when, I got out and got a job and had a relationship, and I think it was, just about to move out of home for the first time, do all those sort of things. And there was a definite shift for me where I began to realise that while I couldn't change what had happened, I definitely had the opportunity to change the way I looked at it. I had the opportunity to change the way I felt about it. And I had the opportunity to change what happened next. And so I began to look at what happened from a place of complete gratitude. And most people think, how the heck can, ending up a quadriplegic and needing a wheelchair for the rest of your life be positive? But it was a genuine shift for me. And I can say with absolute certainty now that having made that shift, that I've had opportunities and experiences in my life that I would never have had my life had taken the path that I'd intended it to all of those years ago. And that's one of the things that, for most people, if people are in a challenging situation, or even just in day to day when you get in a state of overwhelm or frustration, is to always just come back to gratitude. And gratitude not from look around and find all the things you're grateful for, is just to actually just experience a sense of gratitude. And I do that by just saying thank you for the opportunity to be who I am, where I am, with what I have at this moment in time. And it just snaps you out of the worrying about what's already been or worrying about what's coming ahead, just brings you back into the moment. And coming from a place of gratitude definitely shifts, because you can't feel bad about something you're grateful for. You can't feel two opposing emotions in the one moment. So, and gratitude's a choice. And so it's the simplest way to bring yourself back into the moment.
Look, I love that. I used to have a gratitude jar with my son. We haven't done it this year, but throughout the year, what we do is we write a little note on a daily, if we can, not necessarily daily, but as often as we can, and put in this jar. And then at the end of the year, the start of the new year, we open this jar for to look at what we were grateful for throughout the year. But it's such a hard thing to practice, and how can we get people to practice that gratitude? As you said, feeling of gratitude, being grateful on a daily basis, because it's easier said than done. I mean, I tried it, and I wished I could get my family, my son, my husband to do it more regularly. But it's a hard habit to build.
Yeah, and I think the way that people have traditionally done it, and the traditional way, or the way that you hear it most, is similar, is to write down things you're grateful for, have a gratitude journal. And sometimes I feel for myself and for many other people that I've spoken to over the years, is it almost becomes like something you do out of a sense of obligation rather than coming from a place of pure heart. And that's where I've found that using a mantra has been really powerful, because it's just something you say, and then that brings that state. In addition to that, what I do is I practice more situational gratitude as well. So that's around just being really aware of your surroundings in any moment, and taking the time to actually really look at something and be grateful for it. And I did this yesterday afternoon. I was sitting out on my front veranda in the sun, 30-degree day in September, grateful for that. But I was actually watching some birds just flying from tree to tree. And I probably spent 10 minutes just watching the birds just going from tree to tree. Those are the moments that actually can really bring you a really deep sense of gratitude and presence, and I guess mindfulness is the word that's used. Another way that is really good to start to instill a sense of gratitude, particularly with children, is at the end of each day. It could be at the end of the school day. It could be when you're around the table for family dinner. It could be as they're going to bed of a night, is just to ask them, what was the best thing that happened today?
Yeah. I used to do that until he became a teenager and he stopped doing it.
Oh, that's when you need to turn around, and when they say that, you go, what was the least crap thing that happened today? Because sometimes they're like, nope, that's where they're in the grunting stage, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. But talking about gratitude, it's funny that you said you sat there yesterday and being grateful of listening to the birds. Yesterday I went out, after sitting at my laptop working, I went out and looked at the trees. And I looked at marvel at the trees, and I thought, of course there was still traffic and people, but I thought, if I can just be in this, just trying and silence things around me, I could hear like insects buzzing around, and I saw this little bee far away, and I thought, oh my God, it was so great. And so whatever stress I was having prior to stepping out, it did clear my mind. But yeah, so it's how do we make these kind of behavior and habits more, do people think that that's, oh God, I don't have the time for that, it's just too of a kind of wanky, So how do we respond to that though?
Yeah, it's funny. I use the exact same word as you just said then, wanky, particularly with the typical gratitude journal, because I do find that I felt it was quite wanky and it didn't work for me. But I think it's just the thing is, people need to find what works for them. And I think that really, if you don't have the time to say a one-line mantra to yourself, or you don't have the time to answer a question about what was the best part of the day, there is something really big going on in your life if you don't have the time for that. And this is where I really like to find, to find really, really simple things. And I don't get much more simple than this. And that's why I love simplicity. But really, I think it's just getting people to commit to giving it a go. And there's things that I do in my day, like I journal, not your typical gratitude journal, but I journal every night, and I haven't missed a night in over 5 years now.
Oh, wow.
It's my non-negotiable. But I started with a commitment to do it for 90 days, no exception. And my commitment with the journal was to write one sentence. And it was pretty much answering that question of what was the best thing that happened today. And so I just wrote a sentence that said, today I had the opportunity to. It could take 30 seconds if it got a bit of a roll on. There's times where it has evolved into very long essay material. But it's just finding, I think the big thing is committing to find one thing. Because I think sometimes people think they need to make all of these changes and they try and do too many things at once. And if you try and do everything, you end up doing nothing. So it's just finding the one thing. Do that for, commit, even if it's committing to do it. Okay, I'm going to do it for a week, and then I'm going to do it for another week. I'm a bit of an overachiever, so went for the 90 days in one go, which turned into 5 years, and now it's my non-negotiable. I cannot go to bed without writing.
Right. Wow.
And so it's just finding the one thing.
So you've had, following that decision and that you've turned your perspectives around. And then on this journey to be to share with the world about building resilience and how you create opportunities from obstacles. Have you experienced further obstacles in being on that journey?
Every day. Oh, look, this is the thing. I think that there's a perception that once you kind of figure out what you're going to do and you get some success, that suddenly it's just all smooth sailing, but it's far from it. But there's challenges every single day, and particularly when you're doing something, like this and like what you're doing with creating content and putting it out and connecting with the world. There's always barriers. There's always obstacles, whether it's a tech issue. These last 6 months have been a massive issue for many of us, and in my business before March hit, it was 95% of my business was keynote speaking in person. And every booking I had for 2020 was either cancelled or postponed indefinitely. So I was off the back of probably the best 6 months I've ever had in business, and then to hit a complete brick wall. And that I'm not the only one. Lots of people have had those issues, and that was a big hit. But there's little things that you face every day, and a lot of, I think probably the biggest issue that happens every day is what goes on between our ears. And it doesn't matter how much success you get or outwardly how people perceive that you're doing amazing or you're super got it together. There's always the doubts that creep in.
Oh, yes.
Always. Yeah.
If people only knew this, and I think we don't hear enough of these doubts. We don't hear enough stories and content around, we hear a lot about, how to build a successful $1 million sort of business, or look at how many millions of followers you can get and all that. And you think, yeah, but that journey there, and I was speaking to somebody, that journey there, I'd like to document, because as you said, it's that constant voice of, oh my God, how can I improve on this? What else can I do? And how can I engage more people? And all of that stuff, isn't it?
Oh, it is. It is. And then there's the other stuff that's like, who am I to do this?
Yes.
What are they going to think of me? Someone, I'm going to get criticised, or I'm going to make a mistake, or, you're putting something out there and, I'm going to forget what I need to say. There is just so much chatter that goes on. Dealing with those kind of things is just, is really important. And also knowing that it never goes away. I think that was something that was really reassuring for me to hear, is it doesn't matter how far you get, that stuff still goes on. You just get better at you're in a dialogue gets better at sort of going. For me, I know it's like, oh, it's my brain trying to keep me safe because my brain is perceiving that I'm putting myself in danger because there is that element of adrenaline that comes from, getting up in front of 1,000 people and doing things like that. And so a lot of the time I just go, thanks, brain. I know you're trying to keep me safe, but I got this.
Yeah. I remember the other day, actually, it was in the shower thinking there was a post I've seen many, I can't remember a while back, about meditation. And one of there was a monk saying, is the community voices of monkeys in your head? So feed it with a banana, right? So as my voices was going, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to feed a banana. I'm going to feed a banana so it can stop talking. And sometimes you think there's a committee of voices. You can shrink it down to 2 voices between you and the brain, but there are other times there are so many voices that you don't know which ones you have dialogue with. But yeah, I don't know.
I'm gonna have to remember that one. Yeah, it's feed the monkeys a banana.
Yeah, that's right.
Because it's funny, isn't it? It's even when you're out with a group, when you're with a group of people, I think the only time there's silence is when everyone's eating.
Yeah, that's right. So what was it like then for you this year with the whole? You said with your business being keynote speaker. What did that mean for you, and how did you manage your emotionally, mentally?
Yeah, it was definitely challenging. And I think that particularly here in Australia, we've been very fortunate that I was able to tap into JobKeeper, which was really good because what it enabled me to do was it enabled me to have a little bit of space so that I didn't have to then make decisions in my business from a place of scarcity. So that was definitely beneficial. So what I did at first I was like, this is exciting because resilience, this is the time. And thankfully, I've got really good mentors and coaches that had said, people are in panic. The time for resilience will come later. I'm like, okay, thank you, outside eyes, from stopping me from getting a little bit too overexcited and eager. So what I did was I for a while, I sort of swung this pendulum, and I've spoken to many people that have had similar experiences where you went from, oh, I'm so excited, I've got all this time and space to create and work on all these projects that I haven't been doing. But then I swung the other way, and then I was like, oh my goodness, I feel so overwhelmed and restless. I had a deep sense of restlessness for a long time. And then I was like, oh, and screw it all, I'm not going to do anything. So I just went back and forth between these two things and eventually sort of came back into the middle. And at first I was like, I don't want to do anything online. No, I can't speak in front of a room full of people. I need that energy. And then I realized it was like, this is going to be going on a lot longer than what we thought initially. So I needed to make some shifts. And then I also realized that me taking that approach was quite selfish, because it's all well and good for me to sit back, but I felt that the more that this scenario unfolded and dragged on and on and on, the more that I would be needed. Absolutely. So I realised that I had to get out of my own way. I had to get over myself and how much I may have disliked doing this in the beginning. It wasn't about me. And I'm really glad that I've shifted that. So, thank goodness we've got technology. I couldn't imagine what it would be like to have been in the current world circumstances we're in 20 years ago or longer ago. I just couldn't imagine it.
Mm-mm. I was going to ask you, so you had mentors and coaches, so you surrounded yourself, and did you select them or did they find you? How did you find the support network that you got?
Yeah, the people that I'm working with currently, so I'm working with 2 coaches and 1 mentor that I engage with very, very regularly. So my business coach, but my two coaches, I've come to find online. So my business coach is in Canada, another one of my coaches is in the US. So I've been able to work with them that way. And then my mentor, I was really fortunate to meet when I was in Toronto. Actually, this exact time last year I was in Toronto, and it was just someone I met there, and he is an incredible speaker coach to many, many successful speakers and Fortune 50 CEOs in the US. And yeah, we met, and he said, if you want my help, then I'm here. And so we meet on a regular basis. He's in the US as well. So I'm really fortunate to have those outside eyes, and I think we all do need those outside eyes, because often the people around us see something in us and often believe in us more than we believe in ourselves. And we need those cheerleaders, and we need those people who are also going to be quite honest with us as well. It's vital. And often people sort of feel that they need to have someone that is a formal mentor. But often if you go and ask somebody to be your mentor, that is really scary. And I've had people ask me to be their mentor, and it's almost like asking someone to marry you on the first date. There's a real sense of pressure and commitment there. But ultimately, it's just looking to the people around you, and particularly if you've got a question or, you want some advice, it's just reaching out. And most people are very accessible. If you have a question or just want to run something by them, then most people are really more than happy to do that. But if you say, I want you to be my mentor, then that's really a big commitment.
Did you kind of made a decision to say, in my business, I need a coach and I need a mentor, and then went out and look for those skills specifically? Or did you think that in the work that you do, you suddenly met somebody and then you think, oh, actually that person is going to be so great? Or was it a very targeted approach?
From the coaching perspective, it was targeted. Yeah, it was definitely targeted. Because I've done lots of courses and things like that, and I realised that I didn't need more information. I just needed some of that guidance, and more importantly, I needed the accountability to actually hold me to my word to do what I say that I'm going to do. And my business coach now, he sort of says that, it's about the accountability, but more importantly than just the accountability, it's then finding that person that you've got accountability with that you deeply do not want to disappoint. Because we'll let ourselves down, we'll make all the excuses in the world why we haven't done something, or we'll just put it off or shift it in the calendar. And even like from even if it's someone that's maybe a friend, then we're very forgiving of each other, but it's finding that person that you don't want to let down. And sometimes it's making really public statements about what you were going to do as well, because it does hold you accountable. And I think it's really the missing ingredient, and that's why coaching is so important.
So what's going to happen now for you with the business? How are you restructuring it?
Yeah, well, it's been a very big change for me, and ironically, a lot of the things I'm doing now is what my coach had told me to do 2 years ago.
Oh, really?
Yes. He wanted me to do a lot more one-on-one coaching, because I'd done a little bit over the years, but I hadn't really enjoyed it. I think I just loved speaking so much and being around people. And so he wanted me to do coaching, and that's what I first started out doing was coaching. So I've got clients that I work with both here in Australia, also in the US as well now. So that's been amazing. And being able to actually go quite deep with people has been something that you don't get an opportunity to do in a room full of 1,000 people for an hour. So it's been a real gift to be able to do that. I've been doing lots of stuff online. So whether it's doing interviews like this, doing some virtual speaking, that's been fantastic. And, being on webinars and being able to do that all around the world has been amazing. And I think one of my favourite ones I've done was doing, just a short talk for 200 businesswomen in South Africa.
Oh, wow.
Was amazing. And so at the beginning, where I thought that, and a lot of us thought that the world had sort of shut down, really the world has opened up to us in ways that we probably never could have imagined had we just kept going on life as usual. And I think that's been really amazing with this thing. It's snapped us out of complacency, and it's given us that real perspective that just because things are a certain way, that they're always going to be that way. So that's been really powerful. So doing the coaching, doing the online speaking, and then in the background, I've started recording for a podcast, and also putting together just some small group, not your typical course, but more of a co-creation process with small groups of people around rituals for resilience to help move through these times and come out the other side stronger.
Fantastic. Well, look, I'm sure that we'll be able to, find ways to we'll definitely share this and talk down the track about what we can do together as well, and especially in the space of resilience. But the last question is, what would you like the world to remember you for?
Yeah. Oh, look, I know a little while ago, I sort of had this vision that I would love it for if someone heard the word resilience, then they immediately thought of me. But really, my big vision is I would love people to start to see obstacles as opportunities. And that's my vision, is a world where obstacles are seen as opportunities. If I could do that, then I would be a very, very happy woman.
Yes, I'm on that with you. Have you read Obstacle is the Way?
Yes. Not yet. Ryan Holiday on the
Oh,
list.
you have to. You have to. Oh my God. A download the Audible book, and when I drive, and oh my God, I love it. I love it. And it's, yeah, Obstacle is the Way for me as well.
Yeah, brilliant. It's just brilliant. And I was asked the other day on a podcast around adversity. It's like all about what's your definition of adversity, or what's the benefit of adversity. And for me, without adversity, without challenge, there cannot be any growth.
Yeah, agree. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, look, thank you so much for your time, Stacey, and we really appreciate it. And so, to our audience there, that was Stacey Copas, renowned international speaker on the topic of resilience. So, she wants you to remember that when you think of resilience, you remember her. So, thank you very much. And if you like to hear more stories like this, please make sure you click on the subscribe button with the bell below there. And yeah, let us know. So thank you for joining us. I'm Di Lee, and that's it from Dawncast. Bye.
You better turn up. You better be there when I shake. Watch me rocking if I can't stop.